Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids and we're back for some more Gwent, and today we're playing the new Irresistible Attraction seasonal event, which is an alternate game mode in which whenever we play a unit, we will steal a random unit from our opponent's side of the board with the same amount of power. Now, there are some pretty common, boring ways to play in this event, but today we are using one of the funnest and most effective decks in this event, so let's go take a look. So today we'll be playing a Monster's Overwhelming Hunger deck, and this deck does one of two things. Either we use our Death Wish and Consumption to get cards that are high enough up that our opponent cannot easily steal them, in which case decks that are designed to steal as many units as possible can't steal stuff from us, and we win because our opponent matches up poorly against us. Or if our opponent does try to play high power cards and steal one or two of our units, then we have an incredible amount of flexibility with when, where, and how we use our Consumption, because when you use cards with Consumption deploy abilities, the game decides whether you're going to steal a card from your opponent after you've done that consumption, which means with a little bit of creativity and math, we can steal high power cards from our opponent far more consistently than they ever could. The trickiest thing with this deck is the beginning of a round, because if we don't have any units on the board to consume, then whatever we play is going to start off relatively small and be relatively stealable. That's why playing a Death Wish unit and using a leader ability charge on turn 1 can be very useful, especially if you're on blue coin. That way you can play a Bridge Troll, consume it, and get a big boost, making it hard for your opponent to steal that card. Or alternatively, play Brewess Ritual, and because this will summon out several cards, your opponent may be able to steal one of them, but very unlikely they'll be able to steal all of them, and then by your next turn, you still have some units on your side of the board, so you can play one of your Consumption deploy ability cards, and at that point, your units are big enough that your opponent will find it very hard to steal them. So that's where cards like Barghest, Chimera, and Orchard Mantrap come in. Whereas if you're on red coin, maybe you can just immediately consume your opponent's card with Toad Prince. The point being, you do not want to get caught in a tug of war for 3, 4, or 5 power cards, because that's what most of the other decks are designed to do. So rather than play a way that supports our opponent's strategy, at the beginning of the round, we ignore those low power cards and go as high as possible, as quickly as possible. Another good way to avoid those early round troubles is by playing Haunt, because although that Desert Banshee that gets spawned in immediately may be stealable at 4 power, any subsequent Death Wish unit that you play will get immediately consumed by a Barghest, which means on your next turn you could immediately steal back that Desert Banshee with whatever Death Wish card you play, and then consume your Death Wish card with that Barghest, quickly getting your cards out of stealing range. Similarly, if you use Giant Toad in the early round, you can then, in a later round, play a Death Wish card in the range row on your first turn, immediately bringing out the Giant Toad to consume it and get that first card out of removal range. Throw in Ruehin for additional consumption, which, especially because it's on your lowest card, which is generally going to be your most stealable card, makes it that much tougher for your opponent to steal something from your side. And then it wouldn't be a Death Wish deck without the combination of Dagon, Weavess Incantation, and Arachas Queen to potentially give you multiple additional Dagons. So that's how you play the key cards, and the big picture is that you either get your units so boosted so quickly that your opponent can't steal any of them, or if your opponent does try to steal high power cards, use your Consumption deploy abilities to steal those cards back, because you are much more prepared to do that than your opponent. So let's go see it in action. Alright, so going up against Scoia'tael here, and they'll go first. Okay, so we want to have a combination of Death Wish cards to play early and then cards to consume those things, like the Barghest. So we might have a little too much Death Wish here, to be honest with you. We might dump one of these Rotfiends, is what I'm thinking. And Brewess Ritual, that's another reason to keep some of those Death Wish cards in our deck, because we can then summon them out with Brewess. So that's useful. Then we could get a Death Wish card of our choosing with Whispering Hillock. So this might be a bit of a better mix. And they'll go Nero. And they're going unitless. Okay, this will be tough. This will be tough. So that means our goal here is, for the most part, to go as tall as we can, as quickly as we can, to try to get out of stealing range. But that is tough on turn 1, because obviously whatever we play, we aren't really going to be able to immediately consume unless we use the leader ability charge here, which we might actually kind of need to do. I think we might go Brewess. And we might immediately use the leader ability charge on her. Let's do this. And let's do this. So I think that makes it a lot harder for them to do what they're trying to do here, which is basically steal or destroy every unit that we play. Now with 3 cards on the board in one turn, that's tough for them to do. Alright, they're going to damage and steal that Rotfiend. So we're going to go low at 3, whereas we're trying to go high with our consumption. So that's going to make this a very unusual matchup. So basically what we're trying to do here is consume this Bridge Troll and just go with units that are so tall that even with their damage with stuff like Trained Hawk, they will not be able to catch us. So I think that means it's probably going to be Barghest here is the quickest way to make that happen. Or Mantrap. I think Barghest gives us a little more flexibility. So let's do that. So we hopefully will still have Devotion. Or rather, Dominance, I should say. Alright, Great Oak, though, they might be able to match this up. That is their one tall card, I bet. So that's probably their single best counter to what we have here. Also, when you're tied for the highest unit, Dominance counts, so we should be able to consume with Barghest. That's weird. That's kind of crucially important, in fact. That's why I played Barghest there, so that we could immediately consume whatever we play here. So that is not cool. Yeah, every other card, that's the case. I guess I haven't noticed if for some reason Barghest is different, but guess we'll do this, because we don't really have an alternative, unless we... I mean, we pretty much have to. It's... on this turn, at least, we pretty much have to. Unless... I mean, it's still a losing situation long-term is the reason why I hesitate there. Because now we don't have the setup we needed. We were relying on that Barghest to give us a way to play Deathwish unit and consume that Deathwish unit immediately. Which now we can't really do unless we go leader ability. Geralt will destroy our tall units. Okay, this is a well-constructed deck then. Because that is their weakness, is if we go big enough that they can't steal with stuff like Trained Hawk, then we can pretty much just completely circumvent their strategy. But that hopefully means that they've played all their big stuff here, and they're going to struggle going forward. But it also means that we, as we were just saying, don't have a lot to work with anymore, so we might need to end this round early. Okay, these are some really useful cards for us. Haunt gives us another way to immediately consume Deathwish cards. Ruehin, kinda, sorta. And Giant Toad is another thing that can immediately consume Deathwish cards, so that is definitely something we like to see. They did play one more card than us to win round one, but you know, nowadays I have zero faith in them not trying to bleed us 2-0, because that's the state of Gwent. But, I mean, yeah... I guess Slyzard I'm a little reluctant to use here because it does take a long time. When it gets set up, it's great. I'm not sure we're going to have that luxury, whereas Orchard Mantrap is a little bit safer. Okay, we do not have any artifacts, I don't think, do we? Oh, well, how about the one in our hand? Haunt? Okay. Well, this does get a little bit interesting here, because, of course, now we could play a Bridge Troll, steal this 4, and then, I mean, they might be able to steal one of them. They probably can't steal both of them on the same turn. If we play you, do we still have enough Deathwish cards to activate Haunt if necessary? We still have 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we have plenty. Okay, so I think we do this. Still a little risky, because we don't really want to be playing around at 4 power. We want to be getting ourselves much higher up than this. Okay, they're stealing you. They had the choice of going with either one, but I think that's actually okay for us, because we can now activate this Deathwish. But how do we want to do that? Because obviously, dropping Haunt is a big commitment, and we'd love to have this for round 3, but depending on how aggressively they're going to push, we may or may not want to commit it here. We could even Abaya... I mean, you're also 4, so you do steal one of them. Okay, fair enough. We'll go for it. Would have preferred the Desert Banshee, of course. And Abaya, typically, you know, it's more for the really ambitious Arachas Queen plays. But okay, we have passed them. And good thing we did not commit Haunt, because looks like they were not trying to push all that aggressively. We could use the throwaway card here if we really wanted to. Do we have anything? The Giant Toad does give us some carryover, so we actually do benefit from playing this here. So, let's do that. And we'll still be at 10 cards in round 3. Okay, so we can start off with something like Haunt, or we could even immediately play a Deathwish card and get that Toad to come in and consume, and that is one of the ways that we work around a slow start to rounds. So we have decent options there. We can respond to a 4 base power play if we use that. Not really sure we need Chimera and Orchard Mantrap here. We have probably enough well, and with Ruehin, the more consumption the better in many ways. So maybe this is still okay. Not really sure. I mean, this is obviously great, but what are we going to use it on? Maybe Siren? I don't know. We'll see. Oh, well. We could potentially use Whispering Hillock to go grab Dagon, which could work if we get a little bit lucky. But we'll see how ambitious we're feeling. Let's start with Haunt. This could get stolen, but if it does, we have some answers. Several answers, in fact. That's clever, though. Are they going to destroy or are they going to steal? They're going to steal at 3. Okay, so we could... That's not exactly how I expected them to do the steal, but we could drop Ruehin here. We would steal one of their 3s, and this is a Death Wish card. So we could then activate the first chapter of Haunt, consume Ruehin. Ruehin would then consume whatever 3 power card we get on our side of the board, and suddenly we're not playing in and around at 3 power where they want to be because it's easier for them to do the stealing. So that's one option. We could also Toad Prince, just consume one of you. I think this is not the best time to do that, though. So I think we probably do go this route. The other thing is, I mean, Weavess, no, we should wait to play her when we can immediately consume something. So let's do this. We will steal you. That's great. I think we're still going to do this, though. We're going to consume this, so now we have multiple cards that are on higher power. There's a chance they may still be able to steal that Ruehin. We'll see what they do with Oniro. This will probably be the way they make it. Oh, they actually go up to 8. Okay, but now this is where they need to be very careful. This is where they need to be very careful because we are much more capable of stealing at high power than they probably are. Because, well, at 8, there's a certain card hanging out in our deck that we may want to get out pretty soon, that we could potentially use to steal one of these guys, and I'm not sure they're going to be able to go up to 8 multiple times. So this could be an interesting one. I think this is time to do it. Now, there's something to be said for getting Weavess out first, but I guess we'll get her out a little bit later. So we'll do this. This will also activate the last chapter of our scenario, but we do this, steal one of the 8s. It's probably not the one we would have preferred, but we'll also steal a 3. We'll also immediately consume you if we play you in the range row with Giant Toad, making it hard for them to do more stealing. Alright, they're trying to set up... Well, we'll see. Is it just a small 2-point steal? If so, that's not a huge deal. It's something bigger than that. Okay, getting some 3 power cards on their side. And stealing this back. They have dominance, but I'm thinking, let's see, do they have a 5? They don't. We could Toad Prince, consume. We get ourselves up to 6. That doesn't steal. Chimera. We're looking for 8, really. Kind of like to consume you, but I guess that's not urgent. Siren at 4 does not steal. Rotfiend does not steal. Arachas Queen. Kind of like to, you know, go Weavess and then Arachas Queen. Orchard Mantrap. Just barely misses 8. Yeah, we might not be sealing on this turn, to tell you the truth. There might be some way that I'm just not seeing at the moment, but this might be the time where we get Weavess out here. And I think we might immediately consume with her, because I am concerned about her getting stolen. So we do that. That'll consume some of those guys. It's a little more value. Get Ruehin back out. Now at 4, Ruehin is definitely stealable, but we could then steal back with Siren. Okay, it's Dandelion. They're going to try to steal Ruehin. They will. But as I said, I mean, we'd like to get Ruehin back. We might end up stealing Dandelion instead. We'll see. That's gonna... What are they going for? Stealing the Giant Toad? That doesn't really matter. Although I don't like all these 4s. Again, we want to be playing at a much higher number. Stealing 4s is generally not going to be as big a deal as stealing 8s. You can steal 6 as well, but they don't have anything on 6, so... I think this is probably going to be Siren time, or... Actually... No, we need... This gets us up to 7, which doesn't quite work. We could also get creative with leader ability to give ourselves slightly more power, and then consume that. Might get us up to 8, but I really want to save this for Arachas Queen facilitation, because we have already used the Weavess consumption there. I mean, we have consumption here, I suppose, and there. But, and here. So, we're going to do this, and we're going to see... What we steal? Okay. not the card we would have liked, but so be it. Okay, Dryad Ranger is a 4. We'll steal that back, that's fine. They're starting to poison Dagon. We want this to last one more turn. In fact, it should, even if they have more poison. Ideally, we wait one more turn, then we Arachas Queen it, and then it'll be very effective. But we shall see about that. We do have the Siren consumption, which gives us a little more flexibility, creativity with how we go about going this turn. I mean, that's an 8. If we go Chimera onto the Rat, which steals Barghest, which gives us even more consumption, I think that is definitely the solution here. Because that's pretty huge. Now, they might steal this Siren, but especially now that we have this consumption, we don't really need too much anymore. And if you poison that Dagon, we're getting a copy back in our hand. Sure, you'll steal that Siren, as we said, but, yeah, yes, would have loved if you waited one more turn so we could have Arachas Queened that Dagon, but now we're just going to play the Dagon directly from hand. And we're going to, well, we're just going to do it a little bit later, in that case. So we'll do this. Do we technically have a row preference? I mean, I guess, technically speaking, range row. So obviously this is not going to steal. That's not a huge concern at the moment. And technically, yes, we have Weavess on the board, so that means we get back Bridge Troll. We could consume Bridge Troll or consume Night Wraith and activate those Death Wish abilities. We still have this consumption, we still have this consumption, we still have this consumption. So there is a little bit of flexibility there. You know, I don't have time to do all the math on it, but this does help us get higher powered cards that are a little tougher for them to steal, so maybe we will. Maybe we will still do that. And they realize there is no coming back from this, and so they forfeit. Alright, so going up against Syndicate here, and we'll go first. Alright, so first things first, being on blue coin is an astronomical disadvantage in this event. So, we will see how we can make do. The trickiest thing is turn 1, because whatever we play, they can potentially steal. So we want to try to find something that we can immediately change the point value on so that it is not as easily stolen. Or in the case of Brewess Ritual, maybe you play that, use your Urn of Shadows, and sure, they might steal one of the cards we get out there, but at least we've summoned a few more out at that point, and they can't steal all that stuff in one turn. So that's probably what we go for here. Let's dump the Slyzard. That's a little bit risky, because that is a card that takes a long time to activate, since it does not have Zeal. And I'm thinking we probably do go the Brewess Ritual route here. And you could make a case for going that plus Urn of Shadows. I think we might actually prefer to go Leader ability on this occasion, though, because if we do this, well, you use the Urn of Shadows, and Brewess Ritual remains on the board at 5 power, which is still stealable, and we'd like to keep this. And they definitely have the ability to steal 5-point card, because they, I'm almost certain, are a bunch of 3 power cards with 2 damage, or 3 power cards with 1 damage, and they're looking to steal a bunch of 4s and a bunch of 5s. So we want to go higher up than that, out of stealing range as quickly as possible, or at least on this occasion, get enough units on the board that they can't steal everything. Oh, if only you were in the middle, and we could have used the Leader ability on you, and then boosted everything out of stealing range. I think we settle for this, though. So one of those things is getting stolen. Okay, that's probably the worst one. Certainly would have preferred if they stole Bridge Troll. But now we can use something like Barghest and probably consume this Bridge Troll. That'll bump you up, because you'll be the lowest card, and then everything should be out of range at that point. And technically we could Toad Prince, consume, but I think that's something we'd prefer to save for later on in a round when it might even be able to steal something on their end, and that's not really a card I expected them to use in the first place. It's a little surprised. Maybe I misjudged what they're doing with their deck. Okay, Tax Collector at 4, doesn't steal anything. And so I think this is a pretty simple play here. For the most part, now that we have units on the board, we can consume every turn, and it is much easier for us to avoid having our cards stolen. But we could play Siren here, steal one of their cards, and then consume either that or the Siren. Siren does have some consumption, so, I mean, she's probably going to get stolen on the next turn, which is why, for the most part, we would prefer to actually steal higher base power cards and not even engage in 4 base power cards. That's just playing into other people's hands. But we'll consume this, and if for whatever reason that Siren does stick around, when you consume this, we get more boost at the very least by triggering the Death Wish. Sure, we'll still take our chances on that, I suppose. But I highly suspect that's getting stolen. Yeah, there it is. So that's why you don't even want to try stealing 4 base power cards. You just ignore the 4 base power cards, go higher than them, and if your opponent wants to try to go higher than 4, great. Because at that point, you're much more capable of stealing things than they are, in all likelihood. So, like this, for example, this Passive Floor Peaches, give it another turn, it'll be up at 6 power. We could play a Wererat, put it right there. It consumes Brewess Ritual, and also it steals Passive Floor Peaches. It immediately gets boosted at the end of our turn, and it's out of stealing range in all likelihood. So that's kind of what I'm eyeing here. We could also just Giant Toad, because it does give us some carryover. So maybe we'll even do that here. I mean, you would normally target this Brewess Ritual. Yeah, I think we can still do that. It's going to get some cards on the board that are going to be stealable, is my reason for hesitation here. At 5 power, maybe that's a little bit tougher. They can probably still steal it, though. Okay, Siri is such a risky card in this event. And you can consume that and get her boosted, and you really should have. Because now we're probably about to use that Toad Prince to consume Siri. It gets us up to 7, which unfortunately doesn't quite steal Peaches. If we were to wait one more turn, it potentially would, but can we afford to wait one more turn? I mean, otherwise we were going to play Wererat on this turn, and we could put Wererat right next to the Rotfiend. That's kind of what I was planning to do after we did consume our Brewess Ritual. So we steal you. We obviously won't get the boost on Passive Floor Peaches, but that damage could end up destroying something useful or damaging something useful. If it hits you, that's the biggest whiff, I suppose. But, okay, we'll give this a shot. Okay, steal you. Who does this hit? Worst possible outcome. Okay, well, I mean, you are up at 10, which is actually a number we could steal. Not that it's going to matter. They will get that Siri back, but it also doesn't matter at this point because we try pass in round 2 and your extra card makes no difference to us. So that's still fine. And that was on blue coin, which, as I said, is much tougher than red coin. Okay, so yes, they have 10 cards to our 8, so we just have 1 throwaway. And we could use Giant Toad here, because that is technically a form of carryover. I think we already have one in our graveyard, technically, so, okay, it's a little bit overkill, but it is still the most useful throwaway card for us to play here. We have Haunt, which is huge, because that helps us a lot with early round when we're trying to avoid having a card on the board that is in stealable range, because we can play a Death Wish card and immediately consume it. Get out of that stealable range. We do want to have some Death Wish stuff for that, but Bridge Troll, maybe we can do a little bit better. Okay, well, I'm looking for, ideally, would be a Dagon. Or a Whispering Hillock to get a Dagon. But, as I said, that's looking a little too far ahead. Right now, we can just go Giant Toad, and that's all we need. So this is just a throwaway. We could even try pass if we wanted to. Okay, we really, okay, sure, you're gonna steal it. Not that that makes a huge difference. Obviously, it was in stealing range, because usually you'd consume with this on deploy, and then it would not be in stealing range. On this occasion, obviously, there wasn't anything for us to steal, and so it was stolen. But, as I was saying, we already had this Giant Toad in our graveyard, so getting a second one was not critically important. And we had no intention of playing any further in round 2 anyway. Okay, there is Whispering Hillock, which gives us access to Dagon. We do have Slyzard, which is risky because it's 4 base power, and with no Zeal, it is absolutely in stealing range. Unless it somehow does not get stolen turn 1, then at that point, once you start doing the consumption, it's much safer, of course. But given how we have Haunt, I don't think that's necessary that we keep you. Bridge Troll, just to give us another way to activate Haunt, might not be a terrible thing. We should have enough Death Wish, but it gives us a little bit of flexibility, so we don't have to rush an Arachas Queen. So, alright. I think this could work. We might have a little more consumption than we truly need, but I think we can still make do here, because we have the Weavess Incantation, Arachas Queen, and Dagon combo, which should be really effective. Okay, they're going to go Sayer Quan at 2 power. I think we just eat this with Toad Prince. Although, here's the thing. Usually, a lot of people focus on low power cards, stealing things in and around 4 power, or damaging cards down to 3 or even 2 power. However, with all of our consumption, we can get very high up there. So it is possible for us to steal a 12-point Sayer Quan. It would take a little bit of maths, but we might deliberately leave that there just to see if we can make that happen later on. It's a little bit of a challenge, it's a little bit of a risk, but I'm gonna choose to take that risk, I think. So in that case, we'll lead off with Haunt, and Yes, this Desert Banshee may very well get stolen. You could even use lead ability on it if you really wanted to get out of stealing range. It's more so the scenario itself giving us access to the Barghest. Yeah, so that's not surprising to see. But what this does do, let's see, hold on, at 12 power, can we immediately steal? So if we play Bridge Troll, we get a Barghest out here. Barghest consumes Bridge Troll. Barghest is a 5, plus 4 is 9, plus 4 is 13. I think we missed by 1 on Saraquan. We overshoot, actually, which is why I was saying. It's actually not as difficult to steal as you might have thought. But otherwise, yeah, I think we probably do still go that route. Yeah, I guess so. Sure. We'll do this, and yeah, I think we're still consuming you. It boosts you up, actually, but that might mean 2 cards out of stealing range. Technically, we don't have dominance right now, because Saraquan is the highest unit. That is a little bit tricky, because we really like the Barghest for that reason. Most of the time, it can consume on deploy and also consume later on. That is a 9. Okay, but that should be a very easy number for us to get to, I would think. 13 potentially as well. Okay, so all right. So this is going to be an interesting test. So this is usually something that we are technically okay with. Our deck is designed to get high power cards on deployability to steal high power cards. So they are playing our game right now. However, we do want to still make sure we have enough time for Weavess and Dagon to do their thing. So we might play Weavess here, and at 5 power, she would be stealable. But what we do here is, because we do already have a unit on the board, we consume with Weavess. Obviously, that's not a great card to consume, because it doesn't have Death Wish. But at 13 power, should be difficult for them to match that. They may still have a Rico, which could match the power of the card that we most recently played. However, that does not account for order abilities, which is why it's not as easy for them to do that against us as it might be against other opponents. So now we're looking to get Dagon down here quickly. Dagon is an 8, which unfortunately just barely misses Vivian. But then eventually we could consume Dagon with a Chimera and get ourselves up to 13, steal that Desert Banshee, and that's probably enough for us to win the match right there. So things like that are what we're looking for. Let's get Dagon out. So no stealing immediately, but we have Weavess on the board already. So that means we get a lot of other stuff happening here. That is the value of Haunt, and the value of having Giant Toad hanging out in our graveyard. And now suddenly we have way more flexibility. Okay, they're going to try to steal Dagon. We may be able to steal back with... If they steal it at 6, we can steal back with Chimera consuming a rat. Yes, which is what we will do. We might end up stealing Professor, but we will see. We will see. Let's see who we end up with here. Obviously, we prefer Dagon a lot. Naturally, we get Professor, but okay. So, in that case, it'll be definitely more difficult to get up to the number we're looking for, but we'll see if we can find a way to make it happen. And I think with things like Orchard Mantrap, which is a relatively low base power consumption card, it may still be possible. Combine that with Ruehin, 3+3 for 6, is what I'm eyeing right now. But if you heal or boost, what are you doing? Getting up to 10. And you just made this a whole lot easier, because that now gives us, I mean, either of these could be targets for Arachas Queen. Obviously, we wanted that to be on Dagon. But that is currently a way to get up to 10. And we would immediately create a copy of whatever card we choose, because we still have Weavess on the board. So, I mean, we'd love to see Dagon. If it does end up being Desert Banshee, that's still a pretty huge point swing, so I think we can still live with that. So why don't we go that route, and we would prefer probably to go Bridge Troll, because although you have 2 higher base power, you have the Death Wish, so it gives us a better card to target. So let's do this. Get ourselves up to 10. We will get Dagon back. Okay, he's at 4, which means at the end of this turn, he's fully powered up, and we would have consumption with any of these things. We could otherwise use leader ability right now and get an almost fully powered Dagon, but I'm gonna get a little greedy here. Because even if they can get up to 10, we have a couple of 10 power cards, so it's not guaranteed that they steal Dagon back. And as we were saying before, we are very much set up to steal high power cards like that, like we just did. Whereas they probably are much less so prepared to do that. It's like, you want to steal 2 power cards? That's fine. It's just not going to give you enough points to catch us in the long term. Especially not if we're about to activate a fully powered Dagon. So, I'm thinking... we have a bunch of ways we can make the consumption happen. I think we actually prefer to go leader ability here, because we want to use our consumption deploy abilities to give us the flexibility to steal some high power cards. So, unless there's Well, we can steal a 13. Okay, never mind. This is exactly what we wanted. To do that. And now it is probably just about impossible for them to win. And remember, this does not give us a Dagon. Usually we want to target Dagon with it, but we did not manage to make that happen. We probably should use that order ability, though. Gives us more low power cards to give us a little bit of flexibility. Steal some low power cards. I mean, sure, you want to steal some of our low power cards. That's fine. We're going to want to get Dagon out here again, in all likelihood. And since we still have Weavess on the board, we're going to activate at least that Timer 1 ability right off the bat. That'll get out a Bridge Troll again. We'll steal Vivian back as well. I didn't even notice they had an 8 power card, but sure, that works. And how many drones is it? It's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Technically, we don't have enough room for that. So I guess we'll wait. It's not like it's urgent that we use that ability. We could just go without using it. And in all likelihood, we've already won this match. Okay, Vesemir is a point slam, and they might steal something, which is fine. As we were just saying, we kind of need some board space. And now, do they have any 7s out of curiosity? No, but they have some 3s. So we could consume a 3 and steal back this 6-point rat if we really wanted to. That's certainly an option. Ruehin technically would like to get that down at some point, because that's a card that we do benefit from consuming multiple times over. So if we were to do that, we would also end up consuming the Night Wraith, which will get more rats on our side of the board, flooding us further. So we're going to run out of board space, one way or another, in many ways it seems, but I suppose we can still make this happen. It also steals this from you, so that works too. Okay, Street Urchins doesn't steal anything. They have some coins to spend, but as you can see, with 2 cards to spare, we beat them by almost 50 points. So there's a look at a Monster's Death Wish deck for the new Irresistible Attraction seasonal event. If you liked the video, then make sure to hit the like and subscribe button and leave a comment down below. Let me know which other cards, archetypes, and factions we should experiment with next. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.